pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great, we will start our meeting. Dave, do you have any questions on the attendance?
Nope.
All right. Moving on to agenda approval. Does anybody have any additions, corrections to our board agenda?
I had some corrections in the minutes. I had added a comment at the end for the last action item we had. In the credit for learning, I had updated, there was some parts that MSBA didn't include, so I included ours basically for our graduates, or our PSEO college credits. It's 1.25 credits per class. The levy numbers did come in this afternoon, so I added those in. I updated enrollment as of 3 o'clock today, so that's updated. And the coaching handbook, we had one part where we took out the activity bus, but it sounds like we have some more in there that reference the activity bus, so we'll have to update that by next month. But those are the changes I had.
All right, we have an agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Is Janelle, is she muted?
She's giving a thumbs up.
All right, that's a 6-0. Next up is open forum, rules for open forum. There are 3 minutes per speaker. Open forum shall not take more than a total of 15 minutes. There is no complaints about individual staff members, about students, or about persons permitted. All presenters will conduct their business in a manner that meets community standards for decorum. The board will not take action on items presented in open forum. Does anybody wish to speak during open forum? Thank you. We will move on then to the consent agenda. Did you add anything to our consent agenda?
Just the minutes, updated the minutes from August 11th.
All right, so we have a consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move that.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Next up is the bills. If you have questions on the bills, please state the bill number and the page number. Did anybody have any questions on the bills?
There's a Furnace and Egg Center for grass seed and fertilizer for $1,800.
Yeah,
The
he
football
told,
track.
it was for the football field and all the junior high fields on the side, the practice fields and around. That's actually cheaper than what we had done last year. Last year we had someone else come out to help fertilize, so.
Okay.
And truthfully, our field looked as good as I've seen it in my 15 years here, I thought, so.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, if there are no other questions, I'm looking for a motion to pay our bills.
I'll move that.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. First up is superintendent's report. Mr. Masterson.
Thank you. Just some update on some meetings on the first part of that, some board committee meetings that are coming up this month. They'll start to pick up now that we're getting into the school year. Conferences are not that far away, at least at the high school, which is hard to believe since we're in the second week of school. But if any school board members would like to come to high school conferences, they're October 8th and 13th. If you do want to attend, we can get a table or a place for you to be. Let myself, Mr. Lattimore know. Elementary conferences are not until November, so we can talk about that next month. But if you want to come to conferences, just let Mr. Lattimore or I know, and we can make sure there's a spot for you to be. Again, holiday breakfast, it's September, but just so you know, we're planning it. And biggest part is the date that we're going to have it is on a Tuesday, December 23rd. Bright and early, 7 a.m. in the high school cafeteria. So in the next few months, I'll bring sign-up sheets, things like that. but the date is Tuesday, December 23rd. And it should not compete with elementary programs this year. So we had debated on doing either this Tuesday or the Friday before, but the Friday before there's an elementary program. And the last part is, as we're heading into the second week of school, I kind of reached out to all staff just to get some feedback on how workshop week went, which includes onboarding new staff. So far I've had about 5, 6, 7 teachers respond. The admin team will meet this week to kind of go over that so we can make sure we take that feedback, and granted it's a year from now, but that we have that, any adjustments we need to make as we head into next school year. And the last one I had is just some board terminology regarding attendance. All attendance rules are traditional attendance rules this year, where if people have any kind of illness, things like that, they should stay home if they have a fever for 24 hours or symptoms are improving without meds. So the county's really helping crack down on unexcused absences and tardies this year, so we're hoping to see a strong year with attendance. But that's what I had planned. Any questions on anything in my report?
All right, thank you, Mr. Masterson. Next up is Mr. Lattimore, high school principal.
Good evening, thank you. So just a few things have been happening. We had our workshop week where we had 7th grade orientation again, where we had the 7th graders come in from 12:30 to 3:30, go through their classes, able to sign up for some things. During that time, we also had our open house for all grades, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. During the last 2 years, we've had our freshmen students and parents have a quick meeting regarding some of the things that are happening when it comes to driver's ed and graduation requirements. Now that their credits count towards graduation, just like to have parents and students there just for a quick little talk about what that looks like now that they're freshmen. Our high school PD focus was on our presenter during workshop week. So again, working on some of those things that Scott Irvin has talked about. During our time, we had our speaker in that first Monday. So got a lot of good ideas about how the classroom should work. We'll be using those throughout the year with some peer coaching observations, some drop-ins by admin, and then some quarterly walkthroughs that we'll be looking at for that. The goals this year for the building, academics, as we begin to look at the process of grading and trying to set up some uniform guidelines. We started that conversation last spring. We'll continue that with the building leadership team and just looking at what and how we grade. Again, the decrease of office referrals as we saw last year, as we got towards the end of the year, we were really hitting that 80-15-5%, 80% with 0 or 1 referrals, 15% with 2 to 5, 5% with 6 or more. Towards the end of the year, I think we were high 90s, low 90s, high 80s, low 90s for the 0 to 1 during those months. So again, we will continue to work on that, and one of the goals is decrease from, I think we had 18 last year. We'll shoot for a goal of 1,400 for this coming year. Again, I have the link for our PLC Wednesdays. What we'll be doing, 2 main focus this year will be on our academics and our behavior. Again, talked about what grading should look like, working with the PLCs and the leadership team to identify the needs and propose changes as needed. And again, our behavior, what I told our staff is that we're getting back to our ABCs. We're going to focus on our academics, our behavior, and if we can work on those 2 things, we can change our culture. So we had some good talks about that. And again, using those tools that we have been taught, and then making sure that we're following through with some quarterly walkthroughs by admin, and just trying to figure out where we're at and how to help teachers who need more help or want more help. So in those regards. Our staffing right now, we are fully staffed, like I put last year, I put again with some creative use of license. We are fully staffed in all of our classrooms. And this year, we're fully staffed for our pairs right now. Once we have a new one come on in next week. So we'll have all of our pairs both in the high school and at our transitions program. Again, we are still looking for our junior high dean, which was just posted again today. Our first week of school, we had JAG Crew Day again. We appreciate your giving us that opportunity to meet with our 7th through 9th graders. Again, a positive experience for our junior high students. Gave them a chance to get through their routine with just a smaller group in the building. It was a less stressful environment for them, and just giving them some tools to be successful as high schoolers. New to this year is we started what I call the 9th grade academy. Again, we talked about driver's ed and grad requirements. What we did with that is we had 1 hour where the students got to go meet with Mr. Kraft, our driver's ed teacher, and just go through the requirements, because there are certain requirements that are needed to have that. And like I told our students, I think it's always a bonus that we actually have this class that our kids can go to. We make it a graduation requirement, but I appreciate that we still have that as a requirement that our kids are able to take this class and get it. But there are some things that go with it that, like you can only miss 6 days. After that, you can't be in the class because the state demands that you have good, I read the word. Attendance, there it is. Let's start with an A. It wasn't absence. Attendance. So we talked through that, and then in the afternoon, I'll kind of pick on Mr. Linden because he's here right now, but Mr. Favor and Mr. Linden put together some things for our freshmen to look at kind of a career exploration. So some slides were put together, some things were put together, some places, some links to kind of figure out where they want to be, what they want to do, and then what that entails for them as they start on their high school career. So if you wanted to go into college to do something, well, here are some classes that you should take here at Hinckley-Finlayson High School that would prepare you for that. If you wanted to go into the trades, here are some classes here that we offer that you could go into to help you set yourself up for success for that. So that was we took 2 hours out of the day to do that. So, and again, they've got that now, and their advisors have it. And with our new advisories, as we go through those, teachers can meet with those students and say, okay, hey, where are we at? Maybe twice a year, once a year, whatever the case may be, just to kind of see if there's some things that need to be redone. So I'm excited about that, and I appreciate Mr. Linden and Mr. Favor putting in some time this summer to help create that. Again, we had a great start to the school week last week. Again, a lot of energy, both from the students and the staff. And we're setting our new expectations up for how this school year will go. Homecoming is going to be a little bit later this year, so it's October 10th will be homecoming. So we'll have festivities starting October 6th, so that'll be a high energy week as we look to take down the gobblers on the 10th, the Aiken Gobblers. I did put some class size up there. I can get new ones out to you. This was done the first week of school. Usually the first week of school it's very volatile in terms of where kids are and what they're doing. I can get, if you're interested, I can get you a new one out to see what that looks like as of today. So, Picture Day's coming up. Like I said, homecoming, 6th through the 10th. We got mid-quarter October 1st. And we have early conferences, so that'll be the 8th and the 13th for us at the high school. And we've got Haley Geiger and Grady Osmus here for our first week of school update from our student school board members. So I'll let them have the floor.
Okay. We'll start with the cell phone policy. I know that's been a big change to the entire student body, but in all honesty, I think it's gone a lot better than a lot of the students would like to admit to. It's good to actually see people's faces and at lunch and such socializing, and you can definitely tell more work is being accomplished in the classroom. For flexing, that was another thing that is most definitely disliked for especially the seniors. It proves to be annoying, I might say. it's, one request we have is just to be able to flex study halls on Fridays, because a lot of students can already be out of the building so much on Fridays, and then they're having to come back for study halls, and that can be difficult because you have to be in, you can't be in one place for an extended period of time. That's difficult to get work done sometimes.
Okay, I have extracurriculars. So the volleyball team has had a rocky start. They have played in nearly every set they have played. The most recent game against EC was a back and forth battle. The team won their first set of the year, but unfortunately did not win the overall game. They are facing the difficulty of an almost entirely changed coaching staff. However, they still believe they are being challenged to succeed. Tonight, these ladies represent the Jaguars in a match at Hibbing. For football, in the football team's preseason scrimmage, they matched up against East Central and Moose Lake Willow River. In these scrimmages, the score is not tallied in a traditional football style. Instead, they are scored by scores. The Jags were victorious in both, tallying a 3-0 win against the Eagles and a 2-1 victory against the Rebels. The Jags traveled to their first regular season game in Coleraine, matching up against the Greenway Nashwauk-Keewatin Titans. They fell 32-0 in an offensive struggle. In their chilly home opener against the Chisholm Blue Streaks, the Jags won 18-8 in a shutout until the fourth quarter. This week they match up against the Mesabi East Giants at Berquist Field. The cross-country team has had 2 meets so far this season, both of which the Jaguars have represented extremely well. The girls have placed 2nd out of 8 complete teams, and then at their most recent meet, 6th of 16 complete teams. The boys' team is small but strong. Overall, everyone is looking speedy and continues to improve each week. There are quite a few new faces out this year. We are up to a team of 24, and everyone continues to cheer for each other on and support each other. The next cross-country meet is tomorrow at Mora.
All right, does anybody have any questions first for the student school board members? I have a question. Haley, did you go advocate for your seniors to Mr. Lattimore for flexing on Friday in study halls?
Yeah, that's just me. I personally don't care. But this is the student body, like that's a lot of things that I've been hearing is about the flexing. That is one complaint that we've heard. And
So you don't know if anybody's went and had a conversation with Mr. Lattimore? I mean, Mr. Lattimore doesn't have to say, but I'm just asking you guys, since you brought it up.
Mr. Lattimore has had a meeting with all of the upperclassmen. He came out and had a meeting in the Fine Arts Center about the new flexing policy, making sure we understood the rules and understood where he was coming from.
Okay.
No. No.
Okay,
Nobody has come to talk to me about their proposal.
for Fridays only?
Yes.
Okay. All right, does anybody have any questions for Mr. Lattimore? All right, thank you both student school board members and Mr. Lattimore.
Thank you.
As you can see, Mrs. Sculler's at a volleyball game tonight in Hibbing, so her report is written only. Does anybody have any questions they would like asked of Bonnie? No? Next up is curriculum and testing report. Jonathan is also written tonight. Does anybody have any questions? I do have a few questions. And I'm gonna start with the first graph, the MCA reading graph. So if you look at the graph, I think sometimes we get overwhelmed by the percentage. But one thing that, if you look diagonally, I think is where you can see the growth. But one of my questions is, we've had Amplify now, our reading curriculum, for 3 years. So if you look at, say, the 5th grade, they're at 36% last spring. But in fourth grade, they were at 23%. So there is some fair jumps that I think are worth noting. But overall, and maybe you don't know this, Mr. Masterson, how long did Amplify tell us, or how long does Amplify give us to really start seeing a difference within our students?
Really that 3 to 5 year window, because it takes a while to really get into the nitty gritty of the curriculum. So the fact, I mean, and we have seen growth, maybe not on MCAs, but on the next couple charts. We have seen growth happen from the beginning, but it's gonna take a while to see that overall growth that impacts the MCAs. I think you brought a good point. We are seeing it go up in a lot of these areas, not as high as we want, but it is improving. So I think, now we're going into year 4 or 5 plus. Back in Mrs. Scullard's report, she talked about, at least at the elementary level, talking about hitting those power standards. Mr. Lattimore talked about looking at grading and hitting standards. So I think that's the next step, is using these curriculums and then really diving into those power standards and making sure we're getting as deep into the standards as we're supposed to at that grade level.
And then my second question is, so if we're not seeing the growth that Amplify is, I don't want to say expected or favoring or whatever, do we bring in help again for our staff or some trainings, or somebody shadowing them to see where we're lacking?
We could bring in amplified coaches again, so I think if we hear that as the year goes on, we could look at that, and I think we'll hear that when we get to our next teaching and learning meeting in a couple weeks, if that would be beneficial.
I kind of wonder if it isn't even in the junior high level, because there's been so many switches. I think we've had 3 different teachers in the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, and last year they went to Rush City as well, who also uses Amplify. About mid-year that was last
we went
year.
in January to see how it works. So there are some tools around us that we can go to as well if needed.
And
This year it'll be the second
the AFAST, the graph, obviously you can see it, it's good growth, but I guess my only concern is if our teachers are given the tools they need to effectively teach the curriculum.
We can seek that feedback.
If you have any questions for Bonnie or Jonathan, everybody, you can reach out to them. I kind of hurried along. Does Janelle have any questions? Okay,
Nope.
then we're gonna move on to community ed report. Becky.
Thank you, Jody. Hello, everybody. We've got our summer review out there, a summer rec review. It was a very, very busy summer. Pam got the rec brochure out in early May, so our numbers were good. Typically in the past, we have had swimming lessons, 2 sessions of swimming lessons. This year we only had 1 due to shortage of staff. We did pick up another, you saw that in the hiring letter, that we did pick up 1 more lifeguard, but we lost 2. So we still are looking for lifeguards and also WSI instructors. I assume hopefully we'll be able to have a training in that again this fall. But it was a busy summer, a lot of positive feedback. We've got a Painting with Peg coming up September 16th, still taking people there. We're gonna take that Chanhassen dinner trip on March 11. The show is Guys and Dolls. That. We've got the aqua aerobics going every Tuesday, averaging about 8 people, and they're very enthusiastic about it. I see there's a typo here. Community Ed is looking for instructors for youth and adult activities. If you know of anybody, let us know. And then a good number signed up for fall youth football. And then also, I just wanted to add, and I'll put this in one of our next reports, but we will be receiving again that $4,500 from the city of Hinckley. They do support our summer rec. They've done that for a number of years. And so we will be submitting them to them a final report and then invoicing them for that amount of money too. So we thank them for their partnership. Any thoughts or questions?
Right, if there's no questions, thank you, Becky. We will move on to athletics.
Hello, everyone. Grady did a great job of doing half my job already tonight, so I don't have to report on a lot of stuff, but our numbers are kind of down in football, but then kind of steadily have gone up. They've been kind of recruiting a little bit, so we're at about actually more than 30 kids now, but we've got a strong JV. Varsity is kind of a little bit lower. We have a lot of seniors this year, which is a good thing, but still don't have enough for a fourth coach. For junior high, we have about 6 seventh graders and 10 eighth graders, so we have enough for one full team. We could possibly get a few more kids. I had one register over the weekend, so they're kind of trickling in still. Volleyball numbers are down this year. We're at about 24 players, 9 through 12. And then for volleyball, we have, for 7th grade, we have 8 players, and 8th grade, there's 10 girls. And we still have a few trickling in there too. That seems to be going pretty good. For cross country, their numbers are pretty steady as well. We're about 22, 23 in there. 24.
Yeah, they just keep showing up.
Oh, well, sweet. Yeah, that's all right. So we'll take that as well. This year we only are hosting one home meet, and that will be on September 30th. So we did our run at sections, so we only had to do that for 2 years, and this year it will be held in Litchfield, so that's kind of far away, but the section is really, really drawn out, and GRC is at Pine City this year, and that'll be on a year rotation now through the whole GRC for all the teams that have a cross-country team. So for cheer, we have 7 cheerleaders, and that is a steady number. We might have grew to 8 because I think a foreign exchange student is actually going to join, and they're going to be attending all the home football games. And the fall play, planning is underway for that, and it will be in November. Very close to the same time as it was last year, I do believe, and the play is going to be The Other Side of Christmas. Auditions will be happening soon, and it's not going to be a musical, but there is going to be some music, I have heard, and jazz band is going to be incorporated in it this time around. So that'll be kind of interesting to see. This year, our fall sports have fundraised a little bit. Cross country did Ragnar like usual. Football, they did concessions at the Sweet Sounds of Summer and a dunk tank at the Corn and Clover Carnival. That coincided with Jaguar Nation. Volleyball is doing their cookie dough fundraiser, and boys and girls basketball were able to hold their golf fundraiser again this year, and they had 36 golfers, 28 hole sponsors, and about 16 people and businesses donated items for the silent auction, and it sounded like it was a pretty successful day, so they did pretty well. I think Greenwald said they both came out with about $3,600 on both sides in funds, so they're pretty excited about that. We're still using Remind as a communication tool. That seems to be working pretty good, and then still using Facebook, and have been linking our Facebook account to Instagram a little bit. Because I'll mention later why. Our school, we've been using that registration still, but it was bought out by Arbiter, which if any of you guys have students, I know a few of you guys do, you've noticed that there's a new platform, and it's a little bit easier to use. And I found that it's actually a lot easier to use myself because it runs me all these nifty reports, and it's very, very nice. And people are still using that to pay online as well. And you can also use it as a communication tool between coaches and parents as well. So it's actually kind of working out a little bit better than the other system is. It has a few other tools that the other system didn't have. So that's working out pretty good. Shauna Washington is still taking pictures. We're still doing the banners as normal that we've done in the previous years. The Hall of Fame Committee met in August, and we will be inducting 5 inductees into the Hall of Fame again this year. We'll be doing everything during homecoming just like we have in previous years. And the dinner for the inductees will be on October 11th in the cafeteria here at the high school. Social hour will be at 5:30 with dinner at 6 o'clock, and are we sending invitations out to everybody as well here, right? Heather and Leo are also on that committee with me. Now for some of the new stuff, coaches have decided that athletes that are still not eligible for or after grade checks, that they will determine if they will be traveling with the team to away events or staying behind to work on work. So that's something that we kind of did last year, but if they feel their academics are more important, they're gonna be staying behind instead of traveling with the team, especially if it's somewhere far away. Especially in the spring where some sports are getting out a little bit earlier. A lot of them might benefit more from staying in class and actually getting out of class and not being in class. So that's why we kind of decided that. And then the changes to the coach's handbook have been made this year to include that eligibility piece that was also in the student handbook. And I think I added that piece into the coach's handbook, if I remember right. I made those changes at the end of last month when everything was crazy. And then coaches also decided to have the grading week run Wednesday to Wednesday, not Friday to Friday. So they have that early release time if needed, so they can sit in the cafeteria and work on work and get that extra work from teachers if they're available. Otherwise, most of those changes were already made. If they weren't changed previously, that was, I think, some of the activity bus changes that were in there that Leo had found in that handbook were from before, that maybe I didn't catch because of that reason. So then, since I submitted this report, it's come to my attention that cross country would like a little more support. So I would like to propose to add a 4th coach to help with that support. Right now, Audrey Dagerstrom has been subbing for Coach Bickstrom on his family leave. And they would like to possibly keep her if they could. This is stemming from a few new athletes joining junior high. Now they're up to, how many did you say? 24. Which is more than they've probably had in quite a while, actually, when you look at numbers. And a few of these junior high students aren't probably the best runners, I guess you could say, but having Audrey there, I think, will help all 4 coaches be able to divide their attention a little bit better and make sure that everybody is safely running while they're out and about, since they're not just all in one area at the track. And I actually did observe this the day that I was at the track. They were in an enclosed area, but if they were out somewhere running, like on the bike trail or out around town or south of town, it'd be really hard to keep track of a few of these kids if it was the 3 of them. So that's why I'm kind of proposing that, just for the safety of the kids, that maybe they have Audrey around just for the rest of the season, if it works out and if you guys would allow that. That would be great. So maybe something to consider. And then my last piece of news is on Friday, I received that we were one of the 50 weekly winners of a contest that I entered from T-Mobile this summer that runs through October for our football program called Friday Night 5G Lights. So we won $5,000, that's specified for football, and all I have to do is post on Instagram, on our Instagram page with the tag, the posts that have to be shared and re-tagged. And it sounds like a representative will be reaching out to me shortly, and they'll be presenting us with the contest award for this sometime. And I think it's gonna be during a game, so hopefully it'll be during a home game. Our schedule is kind of wonky this year because it's new. So basically the breakdown is weekly, one of 50 schools across the US wins $5,000. So the contest is actually over this week. So I've been posting once a week since the end of August, I do believe. No, since the end of July. So I've been posting for quite a while, actually. Then they share the posts. I had to fill in an application for that. And then at the end of the application period, they're gonna pick 25 finalists. which all will receive $25,000, and then T-Mobile hosted game, and then you get to compete for the grand prize, which is $1 million for a home field upgrade and other prizes including a weight room upgrade. And then there's some other stuff in there too. So if we were to get picked, that would be pretty cool. So I'm just gonna keep posting on Instagram and then hope for the best. But it was pretty cool. That was a pretty sweet surprise on Friday when I sat down on my email right away at 7:45 and was like, holy crap. I just won $5,000. So that was pretty cool. So now we have to figure out what we want to use that for, but it can only be used for football, but pretty neat. So I'm always looking for different things that I can get for different sports. So this is one thing that was easy, and I only have to post on Instagram, so didn't share it. So that's kind of all I've got as of right now. Do any of you guys have questions?
The coach that is on, was it family leave? Is he getting paid or?
Well, right now, I think he and Audrey are splitting it, so she's getting like a sub pay until he comes back, and then he will get, then.
A portion?
Yep,
Audrey's
Yeah, so it's
getting,
prorated.
Audrey's getting the portion that the coach who's gone would have gotten.
Okay. And then, what's the numbers say for getting a fourth coach?
we actually don't have a number for that.
We don't, okay.
Nope, and, that is one sport that we don't have a number for a fourth coach
Okay.
written into that policy for.
And what would the cost be if we did do that?
That's something
I
that-
would think the same as the third coach. I mean,
Mhm.
granted, we'd prorate it by how much of the season's already happened,
Mhm.
but I would think it's the same that we pay the third coach.
But it'd be less because we're already paying
Correct.
some.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
What's the number to add a third coach? What was the breakdown?
Mm,
18. Why you're hiring junior
Yeah.
high coach?
here, let me-
10 is for 2, 18 is for 3.
Yeah, 10 for a
18.
second, 18 for 3, yeah.
And now you're at 24.
And I mean, I think like for other sports, I think it's like 35, but they're also all in an enclosed space, so it's a little bit different than, like cross country isn't an enclosed space, they're running all over town, it's a little bit different, so.
Have we ever had it where we've had to add a coach that isn't, if we were over the number, I don't know how to word this, over the number of max participants to get to the next one? Like in this case, to get a fourth one, we don't have another number.
Prior to football,
It might be
having it written in
much,
there,
but-
we did that for football 6-7 years ago before it was written in the, now it's written in the handbook. How many to get to have that fourth coach, it used to not. So we've done that for football, it's been years, but we have in the past.
And I know it's written in for volleyball and, well, now football, and then, boys and girls basketball, and,
Baseball is too, isn't it?
yeah, baseball and softball, yep.
Tom, you feel strongly you could use the fourth coach?
Yes, like Mandy said with the junior high kids that we picked up, and not picking on these kids, but when we would walk or run up to the track, they were having to walk before we get to the grindstone bridge. So in that event, when I have stud varsity runners versus a 7th grade junior high kid, in 5 minutes we can be spread out a half mile along the road.
Okay, thank you. Are you ready to take a motion or any this time or not?
If there's no more questions, Mandy would need approval, yes.
Okay, I'll
For a
make that
fourth
motion to hire a
coach.
fourth one.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second, is there any discussion?
So if the numbers drop below a certain number, does that coach then come away? I mean, how, isn't that what we do it in the?
We've done that in the past for other sports.
So
Yeah.
what's the number then that goes? Is there a number then that coach then goes away? I mean, at what point is it no longer? I mean, if you drop down to, for some reason you lose 6 kids and we're back down to 18, at what point does it?
Right.
I feel like it should be a number for a fourth coach, not just add a fourth coach. That's just my,
Mr. Linden, do you have a thought on when that, if 18 is the number for
It
3
is.
coaches?
And I mean, I get the number part of it, it's the performance of the kids
Right.
that is also
No,
a
I
big
know.
factor,
Yeah.
it's,
it's hard to put a number on.
right, but, no, that's fair, I would say, you know, if we would keep, I would even go as high as 22, I don't think I'm gonna lose these kids, so if we were to go, keep 22 or more, if I get down to 21 then.
Would we wanna write that into our policy probably too?
That would, Leo made the motion, so that's how his motion is.
I'd go with my motion with 20. If it gets below 20, we let that coach go. And people can vote against that too if they want, if they think that's too low, but. So I think Heather, you'd have to,
Yeah, I will keep the second just because of the, not what I'm looking for, but the range of, I don't wanna say athleticism, but the range of running. I think their safety at this point is important.
Mr. Linden, do you feel it's a safety issue to add that fourth coach the way the team is right now? You said it's 22.
If everybody shows up, we're gonna have 24, we've had 24 at practice. And as far as the safety part of it goes, it's, you know, last Friday to get our long run in, we went out on the highway here and then got off of that as soon as we could. But again, when I have runners that are capable of going and running 7-minute miles versus the 7th graders who can do 14 or 15-minute miles, it's a little bit of a stressor on myself and Mr. Richter and Mr. Egerstrom, you know, that our kids are so spread out and
Okay. Enhanced safety then with that fourth coach.
yes, that's why I went to Mandy to ask for it. Because we
Okay.
had that additional supervision, that additional adult to be with these kids.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And I will abstain in case Audrey decides to join. All right, thank you, Mandy.
Thank you, you guys.
We're gonna go back to board committee reports. Does anybody wish to present from their committees this month? I can for teacher negotiations. We had our first meeting. It went well. That's all I guess I can say. Communications, does anybody wish, oh, we had one communication.
There's one thing, I don't know if everyone's had a chance to see it yet, but
Yeah.
I did.
Just Toby.
All right, so then we're gonna move on to our budget calendar, unfinished business.
It's not a lot of budget stuff going on right now, still checking to make sure all materials got where they should have after ordering this summer. But the big part that's coming is regarding the levy. The levy was released this morning, the levy information, which we'll talk about a little bit further in the agenda. But that will be something we'll work on all the way through December's board meeting. So more on that in a little bit, but otherwise we're watching enrollments, which again is a little bit further in the agenda, but they are changing still by the day. They're not quite by the half hour or hour like they were last week, but there was still adds and drops this week, so watching very closely, which I can talk about a little bit more when we get a little bit further, so that's my update there.
All right, then we're gonna move on to the policy approval. We have 5 policies to approve tonight. The first one is 602, organization of school calendar and school day. Policy 606.5, library materials. Policy 613, graduation requirements. Policy 620, credit for learning. and policy 621, literacy and the READ Act.
Most of these policies are just statutory changes. They were very small. The credit for learning, since I highlighted it, which I put up on the screen, I had just forgotten to put that our college credits weigh as 1.25, so I added those in there today. But otherwise, those policies are really just a little bit of language coming out of the last legislative session. So hence, we needed to reapprove them.
Does anybody have any questions regarding the 5 policies? Does anybody wish to vote on these policies separate? If not, I'm looking for a motion to accept the 5 policies that are presented.
I'll make a motion to approve all 5.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next up is Jay Cry. Does anybody have any additions?
I think we should add Mandy Hartle for getting that grant.
Agreed.
That's very good.
The 5G T-Mobile.
Friday night,
Friday,
5G lights,
Friday night 5G lights.
All right, then we will move on to the preliminary levy.
So each September, MDE releases the preliminary levy numbers, which they did this morning, this afternoon. And in each school district, the school board needs to set the preliminary levy. This is not what will impact the taxpayers yet. Our school board, as well as most school boards in Minnesota, typically in September accept the maximum, as that still allows us to make adjustments between now and December. The state will also make adjustments. It's a procedural move to give the school district time to investigate, look and see if anything's wrong, make changes. In the past few years, we have had to make changes. So in September, we typically do that. It's not setting the taxes for the taxpayers yet. We do that in December. I did put a link to the history of our levy, of our approved levies, that you can see dating back to '94. The last 3 years we have, when we get to December, voted to keep the maximum. And you can see for the last 3 years that has been an increase for our taxpayers. I also have a link to a levy comparison on school tax comparisons based on a $125,000 home. When you look at that, you can see we're one of the lower tax impacted communities, both in the state and kind of locally, where our tax base our tax impact based on a $125,000 home is about $252. And you can see the state average is $414 and $343. So you can see, even though we've done the maximum, we are still pretty low compared to our neighbors and to the state. When the state released the information today, the first numbers here, this is what we approved last year, $2,776,277. The release as of today was $2,552,957, which would be projected to be an 8% decrease from what the board approved last year. Again, a lot could change. Ehlers helps Bridget Knutson and I look at this to make sure everything is in there as it should. Haven't had a chance to talk to Ehlers yet, as it was honestly released at about 1 o'clock today. But by voting to approve the max now, it gives us time to work with Ehlers and make sure we have everything in there that should be. And if it is accurate, in December, it would look to be proposed to be about an 8% decrease if the board at that time chooses to do the max. So my recommendation is for September to approve the levy maximum as of now, to give us time to keep keep working with it until final approval in December.
I'll make a motion for a max levy.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed? Janelle's good?
Yep. Thanks, Janelle.
Next up is expenditures.
We've seen the first paragraph over and over almost every month. Bridget and I did do this a little bit different as we wanted to start showing it by fund as well. So the top is the entire district. We've spent about 8.47 of the approved budget. Last year at this time we were at about 8.37. But then a little bit lower you can see how it's broken down by funding source. And the two, I'll just point out, community education and capital do look high for the time of year, but as Becky just talked about, we had a lot of summer activities, a lot of pool usage, so that kind of shows why that costs a little bit higher. It gets more use in the summer with all the activities. And the capital budget being at 38%, well, we spend most of the things we budgeted for capital, we spend that in those summer months to order in time for the school years. So there's still a few things left coming, of course, especially finishing off the gym floor, but that's why those two numbers are a little bit higher. But that would be expected since of the events that happen in the summer with ordering and community education activities. So I'm looking really for feedback. Do you like seeing that by the funding sources? Do you want to see anything different, as this was kind of our first attempt at trying to show a little bit different expenditures through the year?
I like it. I like it.
We will show you like this, if that's kind of consensus every month, then I like it for my chair too, to see it by funding source. That way if something's not going as planned, we can know that right away.
Yeah. I agree.
Okay.
Moving on to the first day or the first week of school.
Yep, so I updated these at about 3:03 this afternoon, so these were accurate as of the end of the school day. You can see our enrollment is at 810. We had a lot of enrollments into Empower this week, which I'm happy to report Empower is up to 22. The bad part, if there is a bad part, is a lot of those last enrollments came out of the high school, so we just kind of moved kids over from HFHS to Empower, but I'm happy to report Empower's at 22. From where we ended last year, which was 844 students in May, we're down about 34 students from when we ended the year. We did know our enrollment would be lower because of just how many kids are in the community, so that's why we had budgeted for 825. So based on what we budgeted for, we're down 15. I do know we've had quite a bit of move-outs. I have not started calling those open enrolled out of the district yet, as I was waiting for the enrollment to kind of settle down. Today was a little bit slower than last week. Last week we were having enrollment changes almost by the hour. Today we had a couple, but I do plan to start calling this week and can share that data with the board as I start making those phone calls. Not included in the enrollment, we also have transition program here, which we have 21 kids this year. They're not Hinckley-Finlayson students, they are SCRED students, but their program is in the high school. So we are down, and I do plan to start making those phone calls already tomorrow, so I'll be able to share that feedback with families who have opted to go to another school but stay living here with the board shortly. Questions on enrollment numbers?
Would it be possible to see how we compare to our neighbors, East Central, Pine City, and Mora? Where are they at with their opening week of enrollment? And where have they been? Where were they when they opened their numbers, say for 2023, 2024? I'm just trying to see how are we stacking up? Is there a common theme?
Yeah, because we had that comparison last year, so I should have their numbers from years past, and I will check with those three superintendents on where their enrollment is at the start of the school year.
Sure, and just one other question. Last spring, we did have some letters that were written to the school board. They had some concerns, and also some parents who came to a school board meeting, I think, last spring. Did you say you did get back to each of
did.
those letter writers personally?
I got back to each one of them except for one, because I didn't have any contact, phone or email, but I emailed every single one of them besides the one. Because I didn't have any contact
So
information.
they got back, just everyone got, anyone who attended the school board meeting did get a response via email from you as well?
Anyone who sent a letter.
Okay, what about those who attended the school board meeting? They didn't
No.
get any response?
Nope.
Only if they wrote a letter or emailed something in?
Correct.
Okay.
Brian,
Yeah.
is it policy if somebody presents at the school board meeting, is it policy to respond back?
Yeah, when someone presents at open forum, I usually do respond to them by the end of that next week.
Okay, alright, thank you.
So those who did come to the open forum, then they did not get a response?
If they spoke, they would have gotten a response. If they were just there in the audience, no, I did not respond.
And then you would have responded to a speaker at open forum via email?
Email. I can double check on who spoke. I don't remember that part, so I can double check that part.
Okay. And did you get any feedback from your responses? Were people satisfied with your response?
Nobody responded to my email to them.
Okay. And as a board member, could we, if I wanted to see any of the responses, could I take a look, or is that something that's protected?
There wasn't any responses, but if there was, I can show them to you. But there wasn't any responses to my email back to them.
Okay, but I'm just saying, any of your responses to the open forum speakers would,
I think I had shared that with the school board, but what my responses were at that time,
I think on Friday.
I can
update
double
that.
check, I can double check that. I think I had shared that with the school board at that time, what my responses were. But I can double check.
would you mind just emailing me or forwarding what the response was? Just, I think I may have, if I received it, it's, maybe to refresh my memory and just resend it.
Alright, we're gonna move on to school board goals.
Just looking for any feedback on our goals, as granted, we're only in the second week of school, but for the fiscal year, we've been going since January, since July. So just wondering if there's any feedback, anything you're wondering about, at least from the administrative, making sure these things happen, just any feedback you have on our school board goals, so we don't lose sight of them as we head into the beginning of the school year.
If you think of any questions or concerns you want to add or change, let Mr. Masterson know. Next up is first read for policies, policy 309, the coaching handbook, policy 501, the school weapons policy, policy 516.5, overdose medication, policy 524, internet technology and cell phone acceptable use policy, and policy 537, school meals policy.
Other than the coaching handbook, these are still changes that are coming out of the legislative session. Mandy's here in case, and she talked about some of the handbook changes. Sounds like we need to find a couple more activity bus things in there before approval next month. But so the coaching handbook's the only one that has more significant changes. The other four are really just statutory changes. The school meals policy, we will make change to 534, that just matches MSBA after approval next month. But I'm wondering if there's any questions on those now, before we get to October.
I just have a couple on the coach's
Yeah.
handbook, since you're here, Mandy.
Yep.
On the bottom, what you added in the yellow,
Uh-huh.
about the eligibility, there's nothing for junior high.
It's across the board. So it's 7
Through
through,
down,
all the way
it says
down?
the academic eligibility, keep going, right there. See,
Oh.
it says below,
Oh, here, ninth grade.
it starts in ninth grade, there's nothing in the new stuff that, I don't know if that's just Minnesota State High School.
It is because Minnesota State High School is, it's
But do
only
we
9
need
through
something for
12.
junior high, because they have to have eligibility standards too, to me? Just
Yeah,
something to look at for.
Yeah, probably, I suppose, I guess I didn't think about that because junior high doesn't really fall under the
They-
Minnesota State High School League umbrella.
But they still have to meet certain,
They
they
still
have to
can't be
meet
failing a
Academic,
class.
they
I
still have to
mean,
meet
you could probably
academic.
put 7 through 9th grade at that 1.67 GPA.
However that was just
Yeah.
something that I noticed on there. And the other thing, it's probably been there for a while, but, I don't know if it needs to be a little more clear. Under B, dress, it just says appropriately. Do we need to spell out what appropriately is, or is it just gonna leave it as a subjective?
We could say,
I mean, just something to look at and think about. I just noticed that it says it's kind of vague.
or we could say follow student handbook rules or,
Or staff handbook.
yeah.
B, coach's dress. It was just two things I saw, so if you wanna look at those.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, for sure. And like most of the changes that I did in that handbook are just ones that are, ones that didn't get changed from the last time that we had to go ahead with this, and just like little ones, so. Yeah, I can go in and I can change that, that's easy.
All right, if there's no other questions, we're gonna continue on to recommend the renewal of our Delta Dental plan for our staff.
Yep, recommending we reapprove Delta Dental. You can see that for singles, it's going up about $1, not quite. And families also going up just over $1. Talking with our insurance provider, we still provide that wider network plus local dental offices where if we look to change providers, not only do we have to go through a change, but there's not as many local providers. So with the cost not being that much, looking for approval to continue with Delta Dental for one more year.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second, is there any discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Next up is daycare policies, procedures, and the business plan.
So I have Sarah Ranger, who's here and has done a lot of hard work on getting these prepared for the district and for the board. I told her I was gonna take my best effort to talk through these, but she's gonna be here to help answer any questions or help clarify where the superintendent might go sideways. First, I wanna just talk about the policies and procedures. A lot of these are recommendations that come out from either the county or state on things that we have to do. I won't read all 13 pages to you, but it talks about what the district has to have for background checks and safety inspections from both the county and social workers, the education requirements for the staff. We put in some definitions for what the age for each of the categories that will be coming to our daycare, that we will have insurance. And it kind of talks about what our rates will be, which I'll get to in a little bit. But you can see how we break that down, and I'll talk about, or Sarah and I will talk about how we came to these numbers. But the infants would be $250 for full-time weekly, toddlers $225, and pre-K $200. Again, we'll talk a little bit more about that when I go through the comparisons. But it talks about some of the rules we would have for parents as far as drop-off and routines, pickup times, what would happen if they came after the closing time, what the charges would be, how we will deal with billing, and what would happen if they have any late payments. Talks through kind of that we would be open to making sure it's the right fit for families, so doing a trial period for families, and what to do if there are concerns or that they wanted to be done using our daycare. talk about tax statements, because that's something that we'll have to do every January. And I believe our app that we purchased will do that, so we were able to purchase a program that will help with all those tax statements and billings. Talk about what to do in event of holidays or school closures, things like that. How we, daycare actually has to do emergency drills monthly, where the schools have to do things only 5 times a year, but daycare has to do things more often. Goes through our smoking procedures, mandated reporting, what we would do if there is trouble. I was a little surprised when I read this one, a biting policy. I'm like, did that mean something else? But nope, then I realized we're talking daycare. So we did have a biting policy put in there. And, I thought it was supposed to be billing at first. I'm like, oh no, it's biting, that happens. Just what would happen, of course, that is definitely age appropriate for toddlers and infants to bite, but how we would deal with that and work with the families to help with that. What we'll do for meals and snacks, what time breakfast, lunch, and snack time would happen, how we will arrange sleeping arrangements for kids, and just really what the day-to-day, as best we can in writing, would look like. Sarah, more that I kind of skimmed over that fast, so I'll certainly stop after this part and see if there are any questions. But Sarah, anything on the policies, procedures you wanted to highlight that I kind of went through? It went through rules on sickness, pink eyes in there. Is there anything in there that I didn't hit that we should?
No.
Are there questions before we get to why we chose the prices? Are there questions on anything else in the procedures or policies part?
What happens in the summer for food?
So that's something that we're looking into. So, we were gonna look into having kitchen staff and pay a kitchen staff person, but
Okay.
I dived deeper into the food program, and if some appliances are purchased for the classroom, I can do it all in there.
Oh, okay, good, thank you.
So when we get to the budget part, it's built in like we would pay a summer kitchen worker, but breaking news on Friday, we may not have to do that, so.
Good, okay.
Any other questions on the policies, procedures before I move on to the next part? So before we get to the proposed HF business plan, we ran some comparisons. And Sarah, this is where I may need your help in making sure I'm right. First, we ran it based on family child care in Pine County. Family child care is probably the most similar to what they're calling our daycare. It's a little confusing because we're running it out of a school, but the special license that we'll have matches more of the family child care, which basically means we can have all ages in one classroom, where a center, it's, you as you think of it, has your infants in one room, toddlers in one room, preschoolers in one room. Ours matches more of what you'd see in a home with all ages. So First Children's Finance, which I think I said that right, helped Sarah, and Pine County with Anna Reiser helped Sarah. Bridget was involved to come up with some comparables. And I'll try to blow this up a little bit better. First, they ran some comparables based on the 50th percentile, so just kind of what's happening in Pine County. And you can see for the infant full-time, at the 50th percentile, it's charging $31. Daily, weekly, $155. Toddler, you can see the same, $30 and $150. Preschool, $30 and $150. You go to the next one, which is the 75th percentile, and Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what First Children's Finance asked us to model off of? Or
In between, yeah.
In between, because we are, even though we are a family child care, we also kind of look like a center because we're in the school, so they're recommending our pricing be similar to this area in the gold, which is the 75th percentile, which means 75% pay that or lower.
75% of in-home childcares pay that, and then 25% pay more
Yeah.
over.
So they're recommending we follow this to start with in the first year, which is that 35 to daily, 175 weekly for infants. You can see how that breaks down for toddlers and preschool. They do also, this pink section is if there's county support, what those payments would be for those families. And part we need to look at a little bit more, after a year, it sounded like we may qualify to be able to raise prices to this purple area. We're still looking into 4-star ratings, the best rating, but because we're in a school and have pre-K programming, we may be able to qualify for that eventually. Go
So
ahead.
the new cohort starts in January, and since we are considered a family childcare, then we have to start from the bottom,
Okay.
because we're not preschool.
So we may be able to get to there eventually, but for now, we just wanted to show you kind of what the pricing range is and where we could be a year from now. But the recommendation you'll see on the HF one will be similar to this in gold. We also ran area comparisons based on if we ran a center, which we are not a center, because they're not all in one classes. I'm sorry that that's not blowing up nicer. You'll see the prices are much different and can charge a lot more for center. We are not a child care center where we don't have individual rooms, so that's why we picked the higher end of the family child care price range. As yes, we are family child care, or will be, but we're not a center. So we're one of the unique licenses that hopefully will be granted here soon in the area with being in a school but running it as a family child care. Questions on the comparisons before I move to ours? So with those comparisons, First Children's Finance met with Sarah, and Sarah worked with Bridget and I. By I mostly mean Bridget, coming up with these numbers. And again, it's small, but basing on those numbers I just showed you, it's kind of breaking down the expenses and how we get income. Income is mostly coming from enrollments. And you can see on this first chart what the percentage of that would be and what that looks like. I'm trying to make this so it shows up better. So sorry, audience members, I'm struggling with getting this to be able to be read. But in there, we factored in what the income would be for having infants, toddlers, preschool, and school age. Being part of the food program does bring in some revenue for us. There's also grants and donations that we're able to get from the state, which is renewable, which would be a monthly average of over $1,000 and $12,261 for the year. So that's a nice grant that we can qualify for, and sounds like we'll qualify for every year. So that was some new income that at least I didn't know about that we're eligible for. And then you can kind of see what the expenses are built out to be. Most of the expenses are staffing, which we've built in 2 full-time staff because that will allow us to have the most amount of kids, 2 kids. We've also, as of this printout, did build in some summer staff for food service. We may not have to do that, but of course most of our costs are staffing for personnel. Bridget broke down by workman's comp, things like that. And then we also built in some budget for activities, supplies, cleaning. We have to have snacks, things like that, and some toys. Again, back in July, we earned that grant from Pine County, which has pretty much set us up for that first room. There are still some things we may need to look at before we are able to open once we're licensed, but that first room is pretty well equipped. And if we're able to cook in the room, maybe a couple small appliances that can go in the classroom. But with all that factored, we're projected with what the rates that we are set to charge. If everything goes as planned, we at the end of the year should have an annual profit of $33,035, average monthly profit of $1,731. So happy to kind of see that the projection is showing that we're going to make a profit. Not that schools are in necessarily the profit business, but we don't want to be in the loss business either. So of course it's going to be a lot of learning. We don't know for sure. We're assuming we're going to have 14 kids right off the bat. I think that truly will happen, but that obviously has an impact on enrollment. How many we have enrolled will impact revenue, things like that. It would also impact if we need that second staff member or need that second staff member full-time. So the employee costs could change as well, depending on when kids are here and things like that. Sarah, anything that I'm not hitting that you wanted to talk, or board, any questions you have for Sarah and I? Otherwise, we're looking, you can kind of see at the very bottom what we feel we could have in the room. We could have 2 infants at $250 a week, 2 toddlers, $225 a week, 6 preschoolers at $200 a week. During the school year, we could have up to 4 school agers. Decided to charge $3 an hour during the school year, because with Wednesday early release and the time, it kind of worked out to be about that. If those students chose or come to the daycare in the summer, we would then move that to a charge of $200 a week. Questions? Or Sarah, anything you want to add before we turn it over to questions?
Did a great job.
Thanks. Questions, board? Otherwise, we're looking for approval of the policies, procedures, and the recommendation of this business plan.
So with those proposed, or projected, profit or net income numbers, what are you figuring for insurance expense as part of that calculation?
When we talked to insurance, I don't think there was a cost this year. I would have to double check on that with Gabe, but I believe we told Gabe we were gonna run a daycare and it did not add a cost to our premium. I can double check that. But we did check with Gabe when we were renewing, and I don't remember there being an addition to our district premium.
Okay, and then you also said, it'd be nice to have a profit, but neither do we we don't wanna take a loss. So, if we do take a loss, what line item in our school budget are we gonna take that money from, that loss? What are we gonna cut?
Well, first we'd start here. If we didn't have the students, we wouldn't bring 2 staff. If we, after making that move, the board would have to decide at the end of this year if this program would continue or not, or if it would expand.
Because you have a staff member and summer kitchen staff on here. So
Mhm.
there's really 2 staff that won't be hired until it's needed.
Correct. And the kitchen staff may not be.
So this is on the
High end.
high end.
Correct. The
For-
expenses
for
are on the high end.
expenses.
Yes.
The expenses are on the high end.
I just feel like with our declining enrollment, that's a huge problem. I don't feel we have any contingency funds to throw into a daycare. I feel like a daycare is not an option for our school district.
She has done an amazing job in that space. It's already ready. She is ready for kids in there.
I would
It is-
encourage you to go and look at it.
It is amazing.
It's incredible.
With the grant money, it's a great space.
I would feel much better if we had private business take that space and they could rent it for $1. That way they can have the profit and have the risk of the loss.
I'm ready to make a motion to approve the policies, procedures, and the proposed business plan for the daycare.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? All in favor say aye. Oh,
Aye.
Leo, did you have something?
I was
Sorry.
just wondering if everything went perfect, when would we open?
We meet with the architect this week. We're hoping that the architect signs off. Then we have to get the fire marshal out here, which we've heard is 2 weeks out, but we can only do these things in order. Hopefully, end of October. I don't know.
Okay.
We're gonna learn a lot on Wednesday.
Okay, good, thank you.
Janelle, did you have a question?
No, I just dropped it.
Okay.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
We'll do roll call. Leo,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
Janelle,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Toby,
No.
Angela, Jody, yes. Motion passes 6-0.
thank you.
Next up is our adult meal pricing.
We normally approve this in July, but MDE just released the minimum we have to charge for staff We were charging $5. We need to raise this to $5.05 per MDE, so I'm recommending approval of the new adult meal pricing to $5.05.
Does that, is that student price too, or do we need to change it?
Student price was the only thing that
Still
changed.
$5? If they wanted a second.
It will now be $5.05 for a
Okay, so it's
second,
not, it's a okay.
a second meal or adult meal.
Okay.
So I'm looking for a motion to approve an adult meal.
I'll approve it, make a motion to approve.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next up is the resolution to accept donated funds.
Looking for approval, donor was LeBaron Custom Rods. They donated over $1,000 in supplies and rods to our angling program. So looking for a motion or looking for approval to accept that donation, as it was very generous and a good deal of supplies and things for our angling class.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next up is our closed session. I recommend going into closed session according to Minnesota Statute 13D.01 to discuss negotiation strategy. I'm looking for a motion to go into closed session.
Make a motion.
Second. There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Opposed?
I will, I'll stop.
Motion passes.